Louria, hi. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to have you here. You and I met a couple years ago. I was needing more facilitators and coaches at the Roundtable, and
Hmm.
we're introduced by as a coach that we have in common. And within 10 minutes, I knew I wanted you on my team. And I know you're an outstanding coach and facilitator, but today I'm hoping we can go a little bit below the surface and
Yeah.
learn more about you as an individual. You willing to
Of
go
course.
there with me?
Yes, let's go. Let's
All
go.
right,
Let's do this.
let's start here. Introduce yourself and just tell me, how do you want to be known?
Love that question because we're multicultural. So who I am, I'm Louria, and that encompasses a lot because I am bold, um, with lots of coaching and leadership vulnerable. Um I now ask for help. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, Success Agility, where I help leaders. I'm a software engineer, a mother, athlete. I want to be known as a person who stood up for myself and others. I've broken down many barriers, but also a funny person. I love to laugh. I love humor. But I am an accomplice. I am not the person bailing you. I'm the person sitting next to you like that was fun, or huh, what are we gonna do now? And so for me, that is really important, especially as a Black woman, educated, middle class raised, and a northerner in the United States, which is different from being raised in the South. So yeah, I want to be known. I am known as the person who says that you don't have any pants on. The bold truth with because I care.
I
Yeah.
do know that about you too. I'm glad to know that about you. And I think we'll know more about you as we go through these questions, or I'll certainly learn more. One of the things I want to frame our conversation around is I had a professor, Henry Louis Gates Jr., Skip Gates, you probably
Mhm.
know, back in grad school. And he said, if you want to know, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact quote. If you
No
want to
worries.
know what it's like to be Black in America, there are
Yeah.
42 million Black people in America. So there are 42 million ways to be Black in America.
Yes.
Yeah, so I saw your eyes light up there. What's your reaction to that?
Yes, I never like when people say, well, what is it like to be Black? For who? For me? I could tell you exactly what it's like for me and my experience. That's why I mentioned like North and South being raised in two different, or being raised a certain income level, or educated or not educated. So it's absolutely true. And it's an experience. But the one thing we all have in common is when we walk down the street, by some we're seeing as whatever that stereotype that they believe in their head that they've seen somewhere.
Hmm.
And so you can have all the degrees you want, have all this and have all that. And at some points, you are the dangerous Black person that they may view, some people may view, or it just doesn't matter. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that, but it is definitely true, I think, of any race, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
especially being a Black woman, it is different.
Well,
um
there's that piece of the intersectional. I'm not like, don't reduce me to my race. I am all these other things too. The way
yeah,
you want to be known, you named a
yeah,
number of different identities. But you also raised an important word, I think, is stereotypes.
yeah.
Now, I am really curious from your perspective as a Black woman, as a mom, as an athlete, as a Northerner, etc., all of these pieces of you. How
Mhm.
has the Black experience in your experience and perspective evolved over the years? What do you believe are the most significant challenges today facing Black Americans?
um I'll say how it is. I'm gonna start with a story of how it evolved or when I noticed it. Okay, so I grew up going to a private school in Detroit, Michigan, and we lived in almost exclusively white neighborhood. And my father, who raised me, who I call my father, is Jewish and he's white. So I had a Black mom and a Jewish dad. And I remember going down south with my best friend. and to Mississippi, don't know what town. And everybody knew who we were. It was really weird too. So I'm like, how do you know who we are? You're the people from Detroit. We were seen as dangerous. And at 10 years old, we were allowed to go to the movies by ourselves, um, to the mall. And I'm walking through and people are staring at us, but I've never been stared like that before. Like, like they're just looking at us weird. And my best friend's cousins were like really skittish. And so we're in line at the movies, and this white lady jumps in front of us. And I'm like, oh, now I'm 10, not as scared of adults. That's just who I am. I'm like, excuse me, you're not supposed to jump in front of us. And their faces go white. I mean, like all the color, they're gray. And they're like, no. And they're grabbing on me so tight and they're terrified. And I don't understand. I'm like, no, lady. And that's when we call like your Black wake up call. She called me the N word. I mean, I'll say it, I have no problem, but I never say the word, but she literally called me a nigga. I've never been called that before. And I was just like, and I just lost it. How dare you? You could never. And they're like, shh. And she looks at me like, I'm going to kill you. Like, literally and they're terrified. They're pulling me. They're like, no, we're going to get hurt. And at that moment, I didn't understand. But as I got older, that was a wake up. I'll never forget that moment of how afraid they were. And I knew I needed to be quiet. And so the things that have changed in the world is um, we are not always blatantly called the N word, but it sometimes feels like there are barriers. It doesn't feel like there are barriers that still stand in the way. There have been huge accomplishments, like, no segregation in schools, things of that nature. Barack Obama, Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, there's huge strides, but there still needs to be understanding that there's still racism. And I think I think there was a big wake up call when they charged the Capitol and no one was killed. Okay. So Black people would charge the Capitol. It woke white people up to see that there was a difference.
Mm.
And so what still needs to be done is that to acknowledge that it's still there. What do they say? Like the biggest trick the devil made was that he doesn't exist. Racism still exists. There's still systemic racism in corporation. There's a ceiling. Yes, we can be CEOs in some companies, and yes, we can be directors, but there's definitely a ceiling. And so for me, the message is it's still there. Yes, we can do more, but we're not always invited to make change. We still have to push through. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with you. And I think for me, that's why I continue to do the work. I had experiences growing up that were formative that told me who I was. And I
Mm-hmm.
am still fighting against what other people thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are on this journey together, and we're at a crossroads now where there is backlash against the work we do.
Say it again.
What is
Yeah.
what is that like for you to be on this journey, to fight, to know what you stand for,
Yeah.
but to experience layered backlash on top of the racism that you experience every single day?
Well, honestly, it's always been there and it's very irritating. So some people's like, well, how do you deal with it now? Well, what are you talking about? It's always been there. It's sometimes secretly coded in these very politically correct statements of, this or that. Like I'm a software engineer. I'm a degree in software engineering, and now I work in diversity and inclusion. I work with tech companies and leaders. But I remember I would say an idea. I always had to have a white counterpart. Okay. Have a white counterpart to say my idea sometimes. Normally a white male, not a white female, because there wasn't many females in software engineering, let alone Black females. And so I would say an idea and they would say, yeah, that's cool. And then my white counterpart, my partner would say, hey, guess what? Would say the literally exact same thing I did. And they would say, that's a great idea. And he was like, yeah, it was Louria's idea. That's an
Mm.
accomplice. That's someone sitting right next to me, fighting for me. And so what is great is to have it accomplished. What is awful is that I need one. I need to have it. or, but that's the fact right now. And so it's frustrating that I have to do that. It's frustrating that I can walk in with my dad, who is white, to a car dealership or to anywhere, and he gets a better deal, and then I come in after him and they're like, oh, and now I negotiate because I'm an excellent negotiator. So that's frustrating. It's irritating. It's also irritating when they do politically correct jargon to say, well, da 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 da. Or I don't know if you've had this, tons of accomplishments, tons of degrees, tons of certification, tons of experience. You present a proposal, and then you have to prove. Where my white counterpart comes in, sits it down, and they ask two questions, and there's golden. And so now I have to prove to you that I'm intelligent, prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt of this thing, or people to say things like, oh, you're a software engineer. How did that happen? Oh, you're so articulate. What am I supposed to be? What are you talking about? And so it is the frustration that you get from us that we have to, and then the shock from others who are like, what's wrong? You're able to do all these things. Yuck is all I gotta say. It is very frustrating. And then when we're trying to do the work, like me and you are doing, the let's hide it and not have white people feel guilty. I find and what they're doing in certain states disgusting, because I'm sure Africans, they did things, and they did things that, but that wasn't me. But to hide history
Mm,
and to say it didn't happen, and to try to say that this is hurting other people, we're not shaming people. We're making something come to light and say, hey, we need your help. This is what we need. This is what's going on. I'm not trying to
yeah,
make you feel bad. That's a personal thing. I always tell people, I didn't do anything. I'm just stating this. If you feel bad, you may need coaching or counseling or something internal. But that is beyond frustrating. It's makes me angry, to be honest with you.
same. And I think the anger for me is fuel.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, it could be really detrimental to my own well-being. So I use it as fuel.
Yes. Oh no. Yeah, I mean, I don't stop. Like, I've never stopped. I've created things. You have to create from it. It's like, okay, well, you can find loopholes. I can find solutions. You keep finding your loopholes. I'm gonna find my solutions,
Yeah.
because you can't quiet what's real in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I'm going off script with you.
Okay, let's go.
One thing I know about you that I have experienced on our team at Roundtable is that when you give feedback to the team, it's almost as though everyone's like, never heard that before. I want to write
Hmm.
that down and do it the way she did it. So
Hmm.
you have a way of, and it's so honest and true and bottom line that it's like, and it's very practical. The feedback you've given to the team has always been, I can do that. That requires a little bit of courage, but why didn't I do it before? She makes it sound really accessible. So, in thinking about how you have influenced Roundtable's team, I'm wondering how you influence the clients that you coach and facilitate conversations with. What are you looking, what kind of learning and outcome are you looking for them when you coach and facilitate?
It's really what they want. It's not my outcome. It is their truth.
Mm,
I always say, people, I'm not gonna let you hide. I'm gonna say to executive, yes, no, also no, and maybe, so that they can find their truth, so they can uncover the thing that they want. Because everybody's not ready for what they're looking for. But also for my clients, they're authentic partnerships. So if you're not ready for what I'm delivering, then we can't, this is not going to work. It's like having any type of partner. We're on two different planes, two different worlds. So in Roundtable, I'm in that, and when I'm in that, I know I know what we're wanting. I know the hunger, and so when I state something, it always comes from a place, I'm very authentic, and a place of caring, or I don't say anything. So if I'm saying something, it's because I care. Otherwise, I could just, save my breath. But for my clients, it is for them. It is to help them where they feel stuck and the way that they need it though. So, that's
Mm.
being able to read different people and see. And sometimes you have to just say it. It's they don't want to hear it, but you have to say it and then hold that space for whatever comes back at you. Because I always remind them, remember in our Designed Alliance, you said you wanted this, you wanted to grow, you wanted this, you wanted that. Okay, you're mad right now. I'm holding you
It is.
right here,
Yeah.
or you're happy, or you're shocked. They're not always mad. They're always like, wow, I never experienced. I didn't even see it like that. Everybody has their superpowers, and one of mine is being able to see what others don't see or see beneath the surface.
Mm.
Mine is for your truth. I'm really about what is it that you really want to do? What is it that you're, like you said, it fuels me. What fuels you? What ignites you? But it's
Mm.
hard to see yourself. Like it's no joke. Like I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on leadership coaching and things like that to be vulnerable and to ask for help and things of that nature. And so I give back because I want people to feel that sense of belonging. Corporations are great, but it is really hard to be in a corporation. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was a software engineer. I was in the middle and I was an executive. And it's hard to be pulled in so many different directions. And then to be a person of color, and then to be myself a Black woman, to be only reduced to a Black woman sometimes to fight in that room is a
Mm.
lot,
Mm.
So I want to give others, especially people who are people of color and Black women, that space and how to give them the courage to speak up in their way, not in my way, but in their way.
Okay. Love it.
Yeah, yeah,
There's that 42 million quote too, right? In your way, you get to be you.
yeah,
Inclusion means defining yourself as you wish to be defined.
yeah.
All right. So you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on leadership training, and
Yes.
you have gotten to this point in your career where I see you making an impact and having ripples in the field. You've certainly learned a lot and changed a lot along the way. So I'm curious, what are some commitments you once had that you no longer hold for yourself?
Um, do you mean by commitments? I'll say my truths. I think I'll translate
Great.
it to that. Is crying is for the weak. Uh,
Mm,
yeah, who cries? Like that's for weak people. And in a leadership retreat, I was cracked open and held by people. Like being held, you could do it all your own. You have to be super strong. And as a Black woman, I do have to do all those things. As a woman of color, you do have to do all. You have to fight. You have to do 110%. But that is not truth. It was actually. I tell my daughter because she's an empath and she shows her emotion. I'm like, man, you have a superpower to being able to cry and show your emotions. I spent so much money being able to let myself cry. So crying
mm.
is weak was a big one. You could do it all yourself is another one, not asking for
Oh,
help.
wait, you don't have to do that? Okay, we need to
No,
talk.
right, right. You look at leaders like really successful people, and they have people everywhere doing all these different things. And as people who are go-getters, who do things, who just strive, and things have been easy, maybe educational, we just do it. We're not used to. And I don't know if people out there, I know it's just me, other people watching, I know it's not you, it's just me, that it's hard sometimes to ask for help. So when you see someone struggling, don't, if it's easy for you, please help the people who it's not easy for.
Right.
Yeah, and so those are and vulnerability and connection is also important. It just that just wasn't ever. I was a doer and I was more on the doing side than the being side. And that's what the
Mm.
transformation was for me. And now I work a lot in being
Mm.
and less in the doing, because as they say, you can have people who know what they're doing, but the impact that they make on their team, the people leave. Retention rates are low. People don't feel understood and heard. And so a lot of times you see the problems on teams and organizations, they're about people. And so people are important, people. If you're watching this, people are important. They are the soul of your life, your corporations, and connections are important, but connecting your way, it's going to look different. If you're an introvert, it's going to look different. It might just be a hello or anything. It's just how you do it. So for me, it's funny because they're all on like the being side of it. Those were
Yeah,
my
I love it. But
yeah.
it's your transformation. It's what is your truth today. Let's go back up to the surface a little bit. What does Black History Month mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question. It's to me it's a time of celebration. And honestly, if you ask a lot of Black people in America about Black facts, they don't always know. One, because they don't teach them. They don't teach
Yeah.
them in schools. And they only talk about MLK and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X or Rosa Parks. But it's a time to reconnect. It's a
Mm,
reminder as we go through day after day after day to remember who you are, to be thankful for everyone who came before you. Like I'm thankful for my grandmother who was in a factory, who said to this lady, she said, well, come work to me in my house. It was in the 30s or 40s. She said, no, I will never work as a maid to you. And she was the first Black woman to work in this factory. And she wouldn't stop. So it's those people, we can look up on Google all those great people, but it's all those little moments that we don't know of. The first Black woman who was in a school and got a tomato thrown at her face or
right.
was disregarded. The first person, the first Black president, all those things, but all those moments. Viola Davis talking about her experience, Taraji P. Henson talking about her experience, of how they're still not equally paid, all those things. It is a reminder for Black people to band together, to stand together, to learn together, and not believe the hype, and to fight, especially when you look at schools. I'll give you a quick example of my daughter was in a school system and there was three schools. One was more in the richer area, one was in the middle, and one, it was still a nice area. But the richer area had all these after school programs, the beautiful building. The other one looked like it was about to be torn apart.
Mm,
And it's like the discrimination because there were mostly people of color in this school versus the school that was majority white. It's still those things that we can't forget about, that it's still there. So for
totally.
me, it's a celebration, but it's also, come on, people, get your act together. Let's get out there. Let's stop talking about it and do something.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
the lip service is a lot for me.
I have so many more questions and not enough time, but we always conclude Voices of Inclusion with this question to humanize so that people can feel like they really relate. The question is this, Louria. What's one big decision you have to make this month?
So this is personal. The one
Yeah.
big decision is is to take time for myself. Um, Work stuff is great. Take time for myself, and even more specifically is to get my butt up, and go work out consistently every 3 days, as my doctor told me I had to. But it's to do stuff for myself. That is a very something that is needed, for me, is to do that. Family is great, hugging, kissing, all that great stuff, but it is to take time for Luria and so that I can be here for my family. It's a choice, basically not a decision. It's a choice that I am making.
Right.
I did my first workout yesterday with my daughter, so
Yes.
let's go.
Amazing. I always learn from you. I wish I had more time with you. Is there anything else you want to say to end this conversation?
Um, Yes, let's be bold. Let's love ourselves. Let's speak with intention, courage, and let's check ourselves before we speak and act. And if you really want to be there for someone, be there for them,
Hmm.
and full body it all the time. So let's go. And I will always say, you are enough. I am enough. We are all enough. Yeah.
Well, that feels good to hear from you. It really means something to hear that from you. Thank you.
Thank you.